Let's talk about Nebraska now.
Let's do it.
5-7 last year under Matt Rhule. I think as I went back through, it was way better than I expected. They were 5-3 headed into November. They lost 4 straight to Michigan State, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Iowa, all by 1 score, mind you. Could have made a
no
bowl.
offense, basically.
Yeah, no offense. They were a dreadful half team. They were 104th in SP Plus offense, 6th in SP Plus defense. They needed a quarterback. They needed better line play, and I am hopeful that they are going to get both this season. The reason that their over-under is 7.5 is because Vegas thinks maybe they did find both. Again, this is what Matt Rhule does. This is why we like the hire. This is what this dude does. He builds methodically from the inside out. It's not always sexy, but that is the template. And he's done it more than once. He is doing it again. I think he is doing it quicker at Nebraska because now he is coaching in the era of the transfer portal and NIL, and you could patch holes a little bit quicker than he could when he was down at Baylor. Now, the whole line is back. They only added skill talent to the roster. And they've added Dylan Raiola to the mix. I do not want to make this whole preview about Dylan Raiola. It's going to end up being a preview about Dylan Raiola.
Okay.
Dylan Raiola was the top quarterback this cycle. Do you know how exciting that is? Not only to get a guy
Nebraska,
like that.
huge. Yeah.
No, not just to get a guy like that. Obviously, if he plays well, that's great. That's what your hope is. But if you get one guy like that, and if he builds excitement around the program, it makes it so much easier that you can get other guys like that. This is not the easiest place in the world to recruit to. They all know that. But getting a guy of this caliber, I know he's a legacy, but getting him to come there, if he does well there, if Nebraska starts winning, success breeds success. You will get other guys. It will accelerate that process, that template, that formula for Matt Rhule. That is what they are banking on. That is what I am hoping will happen for Nebraska this season. He's going to start day one. He played in the spring game. You and I both got the vapors. I thought he looked the part.
Yeah.
Just from what we could see. You hate to put it all on a true freshman, but I'm kind of basing everything on a true freshman, Dan. If he's legit, if you look at the schedule, pull the schedule up while I'm vamping here.
I'm right here. I'm on it.
Could Nebraska not start 7-0 against that team? Against that roster of teams?
Hey, sorry for the quick interruption, but it'd be incredible if you considered subscribing to the Solid Verbal YouTube channel right down below. Yeah, I mean, you're banking on a bunch of these teams being a little bit less than I think you think they'll be, depending on what you think of Colorado, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, Indiana.
Even if he's shaky, though. Even if he's shaky. Could they start 5-2?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It seems very gettable to me. So I look at this and I would bet almost any. This is not the bet, by the way.
Yeah.
Because the over-under is 7.5. So me saying this is not exactly going out on a limb, but I would bet almost anything that Nebraska goes back to a bowl game this year for the first time in forever.
Okay.
And that's progress for this team. That is progress.
You asked me a question during a couple of different previews about what happens if the starting quarterback gets hurt. What happens if Dylan Raiola?
Yeah, I know.
So, okay, I don't want that to happen. Obviously, I don't want that to happen.
Sure.
Is there a situation, a day one true freshman starting quarterback that really worked out tremendously at a big place that you can point to?
They're few and far between.
Did Sam Howell start day one? Was he a true freshman? He took some lumps.
I'm blanking here on the spot, but it's I know enough to say that it's few and far between. Yeah.
Yeah. He did start as a true freshman, Sam Howell.
So like the hope would be that this kid is he's built different. He's different. He's good day one. He comes right into the fire and he's ready for it. And spring games only count for so much. You look wise beyond his years. You look mature. Obviously can make throws. Physically, he seems ready.
Yep.
But when you start seeing the live bullets fly, it's a different ball wax altogether.
That's true. Trevor Lawrence,
yeah. I mean, I feel pretty confident that Nebraska is going to get back to a bowl game I feel confident saying that because it's not just a lot back on offense plus a better quarterback. The defense also has a ton back, and they were outstanding last year. They won at the point of attack. They were very physical. I think that trend's going to continue, especially with Matt Rhule. Again, this is what he does. And there just aren't many teams in the front half of their schedule anyway that I think can deal with Nebraska's defense. Like maybe Colorado. Colorado will be an interesting game. The game against Rutgers is going to be a war. I'll talk about Rutgers next. But I don't have a whole lot of reason to doubt Nebraska this year. I doubt that they're going to get to 9 wins. But in terms of getting to 6, 7 wins, I feel very confident that that's going to happen. I don't know about the over-under. I don't want to like jinx anything. You know I'm good at that.
So if they're held back by something, if they lose to somebody they shouldn't, and it's not a Raiola thing, right? That he is not necessarily like as expected by Nebraska fans, but he's really promising for a true freshman. What's holding them back? Like, who's catching the passes that scares you? Who is, the skill talent? Who is the edge rusher? Like, what is that grouping otherwise, other than a schedule that you are pointing to as advantageous? What is the gap?
Well, I mean, look, it's hard to say based on what we saw last year what to expect with what's coming back this year. Like, I think a lot of it is inference and assumption.
Sure, of course.
Because when you have a quarterback situation, I don't want to put it on any one guy, but the quarterback situation was very bleak last year. And as a result, they didn't get much through the air. The line play was equally as bad a year ago. I mean, that might have been the catalyst for at least part of why offense was so bad a season ago. It just affected everything. And so now coming into this year, like I look at what they have coming back and I feel somewhat optimistic that they're going to run the ball better. I feel somewhat optimistic that with some of the talent that they have gotten out wide, they'll be able to pass it better. It just seems like the talent level as a whole has been elevated, and it may not fall on any one person, but the collective, the aggregate, to quote your favorite Moneyball scene, will be better than pretty much the entirety of what Nebraska had on offense last season.
Yeah, if they don't win 7 games this year, I think it's a failure.
Yeah,
I think 7's that number to me. What's the over-under number?
7.5.
Yeah. So do you have them going over?
I have them 7-5. Okay. So I'm confident in 7-5. I'm really confident in a bowl game. I'm not confident in the over. I guess what I'm most curious to see, I'm just thinking about your question here a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm most curious to see deep threats in the passing game. Okay, like they brought Isaiah Nair up from Texas.
Yeah.
He's a guy that we've talked about him for 3 years now. But maybe Malachi Coleman pops at receiver. Maybe it's Jamal Banks who comes in from Wake Forest. Guys who have some experience and some size. Like, they've just gotten better at acquiring that talent.
Yeah.
And I think you put that around Raiola, the hope is that the whole thing gets better.
Okay.
So I'm excited about this. I'm very interested in Nebraska.
I see at Iowa, at USC, at Ohio State, at Wisconsin, all like within a month.
I know.
I know. That's going to be tricky, but I don't know, man. Like it's on a certain level, and this is also true of Wisconsin. We're like, yes, Nebraska's defense was very good and promising last year. Yes, Wisconsin's defense was very good and promising last year, as we expected, right? Luke Fickell, Matt Rhule, like they should have good defenses. These are places that have recently had some pretty good defenses. And then you look at the quarterbacks they played last year.
I know.
You're like, we think this defense is strong, but man, all due respect to like what Illinois and Minnesota and stuff were offering, but like both of these teams played like 9 sub-100 offenses. So
yeah,
that's the trouble where you're just like, yeah, Dylan Raiola and a pretty good defense. You're just like, okay, it's still a gamble.